Welcome back to the Lumiose Post, where we talk about all things Pokemon, and today we have a very interesting theory that kind of ties together the Galar and the Paldea region, and that is that I think Chairman Rose, who of course is like the Pokemon League chairman in the Galar region, as well as the CEO of Macrocosmos, I think he might be evil. I'm kidding, that's not the theory. If you've already played Scarlet and Violet, Sword and Shield, you know that he's the villain. He basically was trying to recreate the Darkest Day, which was this terrible, like, apocalyptic day from Galar's history, to ensure that Galar lived longer. A very dumb plan, on par with Team Aqua and Magma's, if I do say so myself. But that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about how Rose was doing something else nefarious, kind of casually, and that is harnessing the power of our new little Pokemon friend to basically run the Pokemon League. I believe he was using this little baby Terapagos, as we're calling it, but I don't think it's actually that. More on that in a bit. Where he was using it to power the Galar stadiums, as well as to possibly even hold Eternatus for the time that he was holding Eternatus captive below Hammerlock Stadium. So where is this all coming from? Why am I randomly pointing to Rose and saying he's using a baby Terapagos? Well, because what happened was when the baby Terapagos, as we're calling it, was revealed, it was in the new anime Pokemon Horizons, where Liko was jumping off of a building with her Sprigatito, and a Psycho Cut from Amethio Surledge was coming right at her, and so the pendant, basically, that she wears around her neck is revealed to not be a piece of jewelry at all, but is in fact the pendant itself is the shell of this baby Terapagos Pokemon, who comes out and like protects them in this weird hexagonal shield. And obviously at first glance you might think this is the move Protect, and I did think maybe this is somehow related to the move Protect, but you know, because if you look at the games you can actually see that Protect is like these little hexagonal shield in the games. But as of Journeys, at least, because we see this with Go's Phalanx when it uses Protect, this isn't what Protect looks like. So I believe this is just actually the power of this baby Terapagos, and not it using an actual move, you know? Like, plenty of Pokemon have, like, abilities or powers, but they're not necessarily their moves that they're using, right? And I think that's what was happening here. But I did think this looked similar to something else, too. If you notice, in the Galar region, you know, these big stadiums, their, you know, Pokemon battles are huge there, and they have these Dynamax battles in the stadium, but obviously, when you're battling with Kaiju-sized Pokemon, things can get a little deadly. So, like, the scene I always think of is when Ash is battling Raihan's Flygon uses Sandstorm, and so you see the Sandstorm starts going all over the place, and it starts, like, going towards the crowd, too. But what happens is these stadiums are designed to have this, like, shield that'll protect the people from this Sandstorm or from any Pokemon's attack. It's like this weird hexagonal force field that'll form up in front of the audience to block the Sandstorm from getting to them. And that made me think, you know, that is hexagonal shields, very similar to what we saw with the baby Terapagos protecting Liko. And so that's kind of where this theory was based, and I started diving more into that and found some interesting stuff. So next, what we need to do is we need to go ahead and get some things out of the way about this baby Terapagos, as we keep calling it. Baby Terapagos is an extremely misleading name, but the fact of the matter is we've got nothing better to call this thing because they won't give us a name, so I personally believe that this thing is actually going to be a Diancie Carbink situation or a Manaphy Fione situation, where it is very much related to Terapagos, but that'll never evolve into Terapagos. Ever. At any point. But again, it is related to it, just like how Carbink is related to Diancie in the sense that it was actually a Carbink that got some weird environmental pressure that caused it to basically evolve into Diancie, or like Manaphy Fione, where Fione hatches from Manaphy's eggs, but Fione will never become a Manaphy, and this is basically due to the effects of where Manaphy is reproducing. Now, again, I think this thing, it's a similar situation with Terapagos. Probably not the exact same relationship, but just the basic idea of related, but not going to evolve into it. And I think that also this thing, you see that it is Lico's pendant, and if you look in the Terra Orb, you can see a very similar looking jewel inside the Terra Orb as well. So I actually believe that all the Terra Orbs contain this thing, and that little jewel in there is this thing. That would explain why the Terra Orb itself, it looks very similar to a Pokeball. It's because when Sada and Toro created the Terra Orb, they had to create a Pokeball-like device because they knew they were harnessing the power of a Pokemon, and that's how they did it. This is important, trust me. And for the record, if you want to see like my full video on this theory about it being inside the Terra Orb, you can check out this video because we do cover it there. It probably will help with this video, but it's not needed as long as you were just listening to the last bit that I said, the very condensed version of this theory. So now let's talk about Macrocosmos, because obviously we have to know a little bit more about this company in order to understand why the heck it would be sourcing from the Galar region, would be using these baby Terapagos-like Pokemon to power their, stuff, their stadiums, and maybe even where they're holding Eternatus. Well, the thing about Macrocosmos is it is a huge company, giant company, arguably, in fact, I don't even think it is arguable, it's Galar's biggest company. This is the Microsoft Windows or the Apple, whatever you want to call it, the Disney, if you will, of the Galar region. And it has tons of jobs in the Galar region. Like, it has an air freight company, and it has a rail company, and all kinds of different branches just in the Galar region. So I imagine with how big this company is, it probably sources from outside of the Galar region. You see this with many big companies in the United States, and I'm sure in other countries as well. It's why pretty much everything that you have, if you look somewhere on the tag, it'll say it's made in China or made in Indonesia or something. It's sourced from another country. And also, America's oil. We source a lot of countries' oil, in fact, is sourced from somewhere else. It's not actually found in that country. It is bought by another country. So, again, all of this just points to Macrocosmos would probably do like this too, because that's just standard big company practice. Now, there is some proof that Macrocosmos does this as well. If you look at the movie Detective Pikachu, you can see when they're in the Pokemon lab, they, are looking at all these different screens or whatever, and on one of the screens, there seems to be a Macrocosmos logo, which, again, would imply that Macrocosmos is sourcing this something from this lab, which is outside of Rhyme City. So it is outside of the Galar region, because Rhyme City is not in the Galar region. Furthermore, in this lab, they were studying these giant Torterra, which, giant Torterra, very similar to the Dynamax phenomenon. So again, it makes sense that Macrocosmos probably had something to do with this lab. This is probably their lab. They are probably sourcing out to this lab. They are, doing research outside of the Galar region. So again, if they're doing it in whatever region Rhyme City exists in, then who's to say they're not doing it in Paldea as well? We know that Rose is super scared about Galar running out of energy, so that's another reason that it would make sense for him to try to source energy from somewhere else. And when he starts hearing about the stones that exist in Area 0 in the Paldea region, well, that just becomes a perfect fit, because you see, these stones are crazy special. If you go into Area 0, you can actually see this in action for yourself. I had always wondered why Area 0 was always daytime. It can be nighttime in your game, and you can jump down into Area 0, and it'll be daytime down there. I thought, was this another universe or something? But I actually got to shout out Birdkeeper Toby, because together he and I kind of workshopped some ideas around this, and basically ended up finding out that the light in Area 0 is actually probably formed by these stones. If you go deep down into the bottom of Area 0 in the cave, you can see that the lights are it's lit up by these stones. Like in the time machine area, there's light from these stones. So it makes sense that these stones would get trapped in the water of Area 0. The minerals would form there, and then basically that would cause evaporation, and so that's why there are always clouds at the top of Area 0, and yet it is still sunny. It's because those clouds actually are the artificial sun, because they're holding the minerals in the water up there of these rocks, again, creating a light source. These rocks are also very, very powerful and are used as a source of energy. Again, we use the Terra Orbs to terrestrialize, an amazing phenomenon, all because of these rocks. Also, the professors use these rocks to power their time machine. You know this because in the room where the time machine is, it's just all these rocks. That's what the room is. It's just the rocks everywhere, all around you. So they definitely are some kind of energy source. Now, I believe the professors knew this because, again, they captured the baby Terapagos in the Terra Orb. They clearly designed it as a Pokeball. But I believe that these things are alive. These rocks are alive. And there's a lot of evidence for this. First off, if you look at the trees in Area Zero, you can see the rocks seem to be like climbing up the tree, almost suggesting that they are a living thing, which rocks are not, fun fact. But then also, if you go to the lab that exists in the cave, you can actually see some rocks growing all around it and even inside it. And interestingly enough, if you click A, the text is super, super interesting that they say about these rocks. They basically allude to them being alive. They talk about how it seems like they're eating the lab, which is just a weird thing to do, to personify these rocks, to give them like a kind of use a word that describes something that living beings do to these rocks. And I believe that's because all these rocks are these baby Terapagoses, which are just extensions of the big boy himself, Terapagos. And that's how he kind of monitors the world and is able to take over the world and perhaps even the minds of the AI of Professor Sada and Toro, which again have these rocks climbing up them when their minds start being taken over. This is all through this little baby Pokemon. So again, Rose hears that these rocks in Area Zero are super powerful. He sources them. He is able to use these rocks to power the shields in the Galar Stadium, which is why they have this hexagonal appearance that is very similar to the hexagonal shield that Baby Terapagos puts up around Liko in the first or second episode. They aired them together of Pokemon Horizons. Now, if you go even further with this, you could say he also was using these to hold Eternatus. And what could point to this is just the fact that it was able to hold Eternatus for a long time. That has to be really powerful to be able to hold a legendary Pokemon. This legendary Pokemon's not in a Pokeball. It was a wild Eternatus, but Rose was able to keep it below Hammerlock Stadium. It'd be hard for me to believe there's an energy source that can do that to a legendary, unless you told me that energy source was sourced from this, which happens to be an extension of this. Again, a legendary Pokemon. So that's basically why I think that Chairman Rose is probably powering the Galar Stadium and possibly even his device he was using to utilize Eternatus and hold it captive, all from Paldea, and whether he knew or not, was basically using these baby Terapagos-like Pokemon, It's just kind of a dark thing to think of, but, if he, for one, he may not know, because they do just look like rocks when they're in their shell. But for two, he also, maybe he did know, and the fact is, Rose made it pretty clear, he is willing to do anything, even recreate the Darkest Day, to get a long-term energy source for the Galar region. But yeah, be sure to let me know in the comments below what you think of this theory. This was a lot of fun to make. Shout out again to Birdkeeper Toby, because the bit about how the rock's life cycle, if you will, in Area Zero to form the artificial sun in Area Zero, couldn't have come up with that without his help. So yeah, big shout out to him. Make sure you go show him some love. If you aren't for some reason, what's wrong with you? Come on, he's the master of theories. But again, be sure to let me know in the comments below what you think of this. Let me know what you think of, just Chairman Rose himself. Do you think he's evil enough to basically utilize these sweet little baby Pokemon for his own deeds? Also, like, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications so you don't miss our future theory videos, as well as just the fun Pokemon videos we do on this channel. It's a lot of fun, and I love having you all for the ride, so welcome to the family. If you're new, hit that subscribe and that bell. And if you're not new, just the like and the comment will do. And until next time, I will see all of you later.